On this beautiful day, let me start this webinar by thanking everyone who took their time on a weekend to join this discussion today on empowering moment through social entrepreneurship. My name is Oriana Titisari, and I am the president of Soroptimis International of Jakarta and your MC for this evening. This is the third webinar that Soroptimis International of Jakarta has hosted. We do it every October, not only because October is membership month for Soroptimis International, but also because we want to commemorate the International Day of the Girl Child, International Day of Rural Women, International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, as well as UN Day, all of which are important to Soroptimis globally. The first webinar we conducted was 2 years ago. It is on human trafficking. And last year, we presented a webinar on the issues of child rights. We always try to raise issues, especially on women, so we can live up to our vision, which is to educate, empower, and enable. And today I am very excited because we have two prominent speakers who will present on our main theme, which is empowering women through social entrepreneurship. Before we start, let me remind you of the following rules that we have. Let me share the screen first. This is just some short note. Please turn off your microphone and video during the presentation. You can submit any question via chat box. We're gonna do 2 Q&A sessions today after our first presenter and our second presenter. But at any time, you can always submit your question via chat box and we'll read that later. And also share your love for the speakers. You can tag us, SI Jakarta, on our Instagram and Facebook. Please note that this session is recorded, so if you don't want to show your face, you can always turn off the camera. And I see there's some lively chat there in the chat box. Please do introduce yourself, where you're from, so we can all get together, because this is a rare opportunities that we can all meet on a Saturday evening. Okay. To kick things off, I would like to invite the National President of SI Indonesia, Chandra Kerton, to give the welcome speech. Over to you, Mbak Chandra. Let me pin you real quick. Okay.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of Soroptimist International Indonesia and Soroptimist International Jakarta, I bid you all a very warm welcome to today's webinar, Empowering Women Through Social Entrepreneurship. As National President of Soroptimist International Indonesia, I oversee 3 clubs in Indonesia, which are SI Jakarta, SI Kemang, and SI Kebayoran Baru. Soroptimist International, or SI, is a global movement of women spread over 5 federations, one of which is the Southeast Asia Pacific Federation, to which we belong. The theme, Soroptimists Educate to Lead, with a focus on educating, enabling, and empowering, provides opportunities for members to improve the lives of women and girls worldwide, and to promote human rights for all, equality, development, and peace. At Soroptimist International of Jakarta, we try our best to adhere to these principles and have been involved in many different projects and programs over the years, since being chartered in 1992. Our other 2 clubs were subsequently chartered in 2015 and 2020, respectively. At all 3 clubs, members have been involved in a variety of projects and activities, from assisting communities ravaged by natural disasters, supporting educational initiatives for students, to establishing capacity building and income generating programs for disadvantaged women and girls. I would like to stress, however, that the most rewarding experience of all of being a Soroptimist is our common sisterhood, being able to interact with like-minded women and to feel a sense of belonging among the dozens of clubs spread across Southeast Asia and the Pacific, who are all facing similar issues in their countries, whether it be in Malaysia or Mongolia, Thailand or Australia, Indonesia or Singapore. With our strong bonds of sisterhood and a united vision and mission, we can make our part of this world a better and safer place for the women and girls in our communities. I hope that our webinar today will bring you added insight and knowledge into empowering women to improve their lives and their families through social entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Chandra, for that lovely welcome speech. For those who are interested to know more about Soroptimist and our program, we will provide more info by the end of this webinar. Now, I'm sure everyone is waiting for the main program. So before I introduce, I let Cindy Mitchell to present her presentation. I'm going to read her short bio. Cindy is the founding Chief Executive Officer of the Millhouse Ventures, the Canberra's region's first dedicated social enterprise business development consultancy. Cindy has worked as a venture capital investment manager and in senior management roles at large corporate organizations in Australia and the United States. She has also worked as a policy advisor and senior analyst in the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, and as Assistant Director in the Department of Immigration and Border Protections. In her current role, Cindy is responsible for the development of a social enterprise support program for the new social enterprises and aspiring social entrepreneurs in Canberra and the surrounding region. Cindy was also the founder and CEO of No Sweat Fashions, a nonprofit social enterprise designed to create training, employment, and work experience opportunities for migrant and refugees settling in Canberra. As a passionate advocate for civil society and the social enterprise and social impact investment movement globally, Cindy was recognized as the 2020 ACT Women of the Year. Currently, Cindy is working on her PhD in the relationship between leadership and Indigenous female entrepreneurship. Judging from this amazing CV, you can all see why we are so excited to have Cindy as one of our speakers today. Thank you. Let me pin Cindy real quick. Okay, the floor is yours, Cindy.
Great. Do you want to pop that slide? Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you SI Jakarta, SI Canberra for making this happen, and particularly shout out to Elizabeth Goodbody for tracking me down and hunting me until she was able to get me to commit to doing this. So this is a bit of a work in progress to make it happen. Our tradition here in Australia is to always begin with an acknowledgement of the traditional custodians. I'd like to do that. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples in Canberra, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and to those emerging. And I extend that respect to the first peoples of the places where you are located today. So today, I have been tasked with a bit of a provocation, which is to just sort of set a bit of context around this thing called social enterprise, specifically in the context of women's economic empowerment. You will all know, just go to the first slide, please. You will know intuitively that these things have been linked. So we hear it all the time: women's economic empowerment and enterprise, or micro enterprise, or social enterprise, or business. Some sort of economic vehicle is usually attached to this idea of women's empowerment. And these two things seem inextricably linked. And so I really want to discuss tonight, this afternoon, why that is. And really what we're thinking about, what we're talking about here is what we call a developmental logic. So, and we're talking about entrepreneurship as a tool and as a series of processes and tools that are useful in raising the standard, the living standard of people, very simply. And of course, this slide, you've probably heard this expression or seen this expression before. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach the man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Well, as it turns out, it's more nuanced than that, because when you teach a woman to fish, something else happens. Not only does she benefit, but her children benefits. The other people in her extended family that she's responsible for caring for, they also benefit. Her parents, her in-laws, her grandchildren. You've heard this before, you get the message. The evidence shows us very clearly that investing in women's capacity, if you want to go to the third slide, investing in women's capacity yields exponential benefits that are also intergenerational. So that mother who is taught to fish is likely then to have a child whose social and economic mobility has also improved. And that quote there on the screen about the OECD, there's so much research from UN agencies and academic institutions that sort of validate this as an idea that women's economic participation speeds up development, helps to overcome poverty, reduces inequalities, and improves children's nutrition, health, and school attendance. So that's quite a big bang for buck in terms of investing in entrepreneurial capacity for women. So consequently, the next slide, please. Globally, and again, you will probably, many of you will be aware of it, and some of you may even be involved in some of these. There's lots of development organizations that are focused on this because of that multiplier effect of women's economic empowerment. Because of that multiplier effect, this industry, the women's economic empowerment industry, as I call it, is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And of course, are some of these programs deeply flawed and even sometimes predatory in their use of debt? Absolutely. But that has not tempered the enthusiasm of philanthropy, governments, NGOs, for using these things. So I'm not saying they're all good, not saying they're all bad. We know that there's lots of different interventions that, are sort of had various sort of outcomes in terms of their efficacy. So as an example, we would know in our region, the first women's livelihood bond worth $100 million has been raised, $100 million US has been raised to invest in women. Now, when I left school, I didn't know anything about any of this. I studied economics and sociology, and I gravitated to a career in sales and training, and eventually I went into venture capital. But everything changed when I came here to Canberra, and I met a man. He's a community leader, and his name's Hungsar Banya. And Hungsar first came to Canberra in the early 1990s as a political refugee from Myanmar. And I have to always give him credit, Hungsar single-handedly set me on the course that I'm on today. And I'll explain more about the social enterprise that he and I founded together called No Sweat Passions. I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you go to the next slide, you might be wondering, okay, Cindy, you're talking about international aid and development in undeveloped countries from Australia. What do you actually need this in Australia in a so-called developed economy? I know we use different language these days, but you please indulge me. Does this logic of development in terms of women's economic empowerment, does this actually apply in a place like Australia? And the short answer, because don't women have enough opportunities here? And the short answer to that question is no. And this photo, I remember when I first saw this many years ago, but basically women globally, even in places like Australia and New Zealand and the US, are still experiencing major barriers to mainstream economic participation. And this photo is from some years ago, but I remember just being struck by this. Now here's Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner for his work in poverty alleviation in the so-called third world. Here he is in New York City, in the heart of modern capitalism, in the richest country in the world, opening Grameen America. So there's just something really ironic and also sort of sad to me about this picture. But when it comes to poverty and disadvantage, and particularly in this country for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians, there really isn't a huge difference in terms of what we're trying to do and the levels of poverty and oppression that women are and exclusion that women are experiencing, and therefore the opportunity for this thing that we're talking about. So very much, like my colleagues in AusAid and USAID, we here in Australia are using enterprise development here at home to raise women and girls out of poverty, and also to chase that multiplier effect that comes from investing in women's capacity. So if you go to the next slide. So what is this thing called social enterprise? Well, first of all, I just want to really make clear that it is one tool in an arsenal of enterprise development tools. So, and I also want to be really clear that not every poor woman's business is a social enterprise. You will also, I should also just be straightforward, I guess, be in the interest of full transparency, just disclose that this language itself is contested. So there are people who just call it business. Because the whole idea is, well, shouldn't all business be for purpose? Shouldn't it be for social, cultural, economic, environmental purpose? So anyway, that's a little bit of a side argument, but basically the idea is that this is a, that some people don't want to emphasize that distinction, but you invited me here to talk about social enterprise, so that's what I want to focus on. It's a useful conceptualization because it is a way of helping people to understand that business can, and I would say must, create forms of benefit, create forms of wealth beyond just profits. Because we have all, particularly all of us, Black and brown women on this call, we have all seen firsthand the experience of pure capitalism, what it has done to our environment, what it has done to our communities, how it has, affected, the dignity of work. We know that isn't working. So we know today what's happening in social enterprise is a movement to really think differently about what are we actually trying to create more of, and it's not just about profits. So here on the screen is the definition that I have used for the last 10 years in training for-purpose entrepreneurs here in the ACT and throughout the world as I sort of move around. And it's really simple. A social enterprise can be, and there it is on the screen, have a clear and primary social mission, generate revenue through trade, see profit as a means, not an end goal, and then they're transparent about how they operate and the impact that they make. And to be really clear, social enterprise in the language that I'm using can be a not-for-profit or it can be a for-profit. However, in the Australian context, the one where I'm obviously embedded at the moment, I work almost exclusively with for-profit social enterprises. So let me just explain a little bit more about how that works. So I only got one more sort of conceptual slide about social enterprise, which is the next one. And this is actually a teaching tool that I used when I'm actually trying to talk to, help people understand, well, what is it? And these are my buckets. So these are the just different ways that we sort of categorize types of social enterprises. So again, in the actual world out there, there can be all sorts of combinations of these things, but as a simple sort of conceptual model for you to start to think about what this is, these are the three most common what we call buckets or ways that people use social enterprise. So first is about creating a business that exists for the purpose of creating employment, training, and inclusion opportunities for people who experience barriers to mainstream economic participation and particularly employment. So what are some examples here? An example of an employment-based social enterprise is the one I'm going to tell you about, No Sweat Fashions, which is the one I started. But there are also others that might work with youth who are at risk of homelessness. They often experience barriers to finding employment and being supported into employment. You can think about people who have spent time have been involved in the justice system. So perhaps they were incarcerated. They're now trying to come back out and rehabilitate themselves. They experience barriers because of stigma. They experience barriers to being able to find employment. And so what a social entrepreneur who is trying to create a social enterprise in that first bucket is doing is they are creating businesses that are specifically about employing those people. And usually what is unique about these businesses is not just a place to work. It's also providing a whole range of wraparound support so that that person is then supported and able to then go back out into the mainstream employment system. The other two, again, I won't give you my lecture on social enterprise, but very, very high level. community need. So community need social enterprises are usually in response to basically, we know one of the problems with capitalism is where there are no profits that can be extracted, they don't operate. So you think about communities, for instance, one of the ones that I see quite a bit here in Australia are food deserts. So we actually have two main sort of supermarket giants that control a big proportion of the food system in this country. And so in some jurisdictions and some locations where those places don't exist, access to things like fresh fruit and vegetables can be really impossible, or you might be paying, $30 for a lettuce, something ridiculous like that. So a social enterprise would come into a market like that and say, well, even though that we're actually going to set up a community grocery store that is focused on providing, fresh fruit and vegetables, because these bigger organizations aren't doing it, they aren't meeting the need. And then the final type of social enterprise, again, this is very, very general, but hopefully just sort of helping you get an idea so that you kind of have a bit of a conceptual model for this thing, is what we call profit redistribution social enterprises. So they are, for all intents and purposes, they look like mainstream businesses, but they are usually working in partnership with an impact partner. And so the profits that are generated from that business are then invested into that impact work. So here in Australia, as an example, you might have heard of an organization called Thank You. So they are a fast-moving consumer goods business. So they used to do bottled water, but now they do sort of baby products, and they did granola, like basically anything that you can buy in the supermarket. But they existed for a purpose. So rather than having shareholders and paying dividends to those shareholders at the end of every year, they use the profits from that business to invest in water and sanitation projects that are led primarily by Mission Australia and Oxfam and a few others. So during the pandemic, this organization pivoted their business model so that they can do things like hand sanitizers and wipes. And behold, what do you think happened? They had a huge like the last 2 years for this company have been extraordinary, and 100% of the profits from that business goes into their impact projects. And they choose, rather than in some profit redistribution organizations, they actually have a charitable arm, whereas this particular one, they actually work with established charities that already exist. So that's at the very high level, the buckets or way of sort of conceptualizing the ways that businesses are operating for a purpose. Next slide, please. Forgot that I put this one here. This one it's another way of thinking about the buckets, but basically this is a spectrum. So it's to help you to understand that social enterprise occupies a space in the middle of the so it's not a charity and it's not a sort of mainstream business, but you can have, but it's social enterprises, you can see you have gradations. I'm moving my mouse and you can't see me move my mouse, but you can have some social enterprises that look more like mainstream businesses, and then you can have some social enterprises that look more like charities. So again, it can be very difficult in an environment to go, oh, well, that's a social enterprise, but that isn't, but without having some understanding of what their business model is. And the most important thing is understanding how they maintain their accountability for their impact. So a spectrum. Next slide. Next slide, please. I think there's one before this. Yes. So these are just a few photos that I want to share with you from my social enterprise. So this has been quite a while ago now. But as I mentioned, my first foray into this world. So I was a venture capital investment manager, and we ran a very small microcredit program for women on low incomes. And for women on low incomes. And this particular day, I usually didn't deal with this particular program, but on this day, a man came in, which all of a sudden, first of all, I was like, what are you doing here? Why but why are you inquiring about a women's microcredit program? As it turned out, this man, Hong Sar, he had been sent by the women in his community. So he's a community elder, and he had gone and he had been sent to sort of represent them. And he brought with him that particular day all of these beautifully embroidered, you can think about garments, and that look like something you might see in a museum. Just the level of workmanship was just superb. These are all things that these women had been sewing since they were children. Many of them grew up in refugee camps on the Thai-Burma border, and had basically done sewing to be able to make a little extra money. So that when they came to Australia, they were still wanting to do that. However, in Canberra, the only real place where they were managing to get work was cleaning, and at night, and most cleaning is done at night. So it's like the women felt very isolated. So this Hong Sar is explaining all this to me, and he's showing me all these really beautiful garments. And I remember looking at him and thinking, who's going to wear this? Like, it didn't sort of, all I was thinking about it was from a pure business economic perspective. And I was just like, look, what you're doing here is really good. It seems really interesting, but the ladies, they have to make something that people actually want to buy. Like this is stuff that it's cultural. And I understand that it has resonance in your community, but like me, a public servant or someone in Canberra, they're not going to necessarily buy this, right? And he very careful. I remember so clearly. He packed everything away, and then he left, and he's sort of like, okay, And I kept thinking about this guy. I was like, somebody ought to help these women to be able to like meet Australian fashion designers so that they can use their skills with more sort of current, up-to-date sort of trends, and actually help them to be able to market their skills. And they should be a place where they can come during the day and like learn how to transition their domestic sewing skills into commercial. Like I kept dreaming about it in my mind, like somebody ought to do that. Somebody ought to do that. And then eventually the hand that I kept pointing at there eventually got pointed to me. And I called him up and said, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I think this is a social enterprise, and I think you and I should do it together. So very long story short, that became the genesis of No Sweat Fashions. And what we did, we operated for 4 years, and our mission was to facilitate pathways to mainstream employment. Basically, we wanted to get these beautiful women out of their houses during the day, because they were very isolated. We living in suburbs and then going out at night doing these cleaning jobs. And so that was the first thing, was like, how do we build social inclusion, and how do we help them to sort of meet new people and to practice their English? And we ended up, we were able to use so in one of our local public high schools, it was a school that was built for 3,000 students. Like, it was a huge school campus. And at the time they only had 800 students. So they had all this open space. And one of the open spaces that they had was a textiles room. So we ended up using that room. We were invited to come in. And so we ended up using that room. We ended up setting up a creche. It basically became a community center. And then we ended up bringing, we also have here in Canberra, we have the Canberra Institute of Technology, where they have a fashion design school. And we ended up inviting young designers, and they came in, and we worked together to create a sustainable clothing line. And we also did contract garment making. So look, these, I could go on about No Sweat. It was my first foray into this world of social enterprise. It was in fashion, which, in hindsight now, that's a really, really difficult business. And, it struggled to, I'm going to be, really honest with you. So this is 2010, 11. So it really struggled to gain traction. People weren't necessarily, there was still a really small market for sort of ethical fashion, and people just weren't necessarily prepared to pay the money that we needed to charge for our garments and accessories. I think today, and that's actually the next slide, if you, these are examples of other businesses, other social enterprises that operate on the same principle in other parts of Australia. So we were sort of early. So there's one in Sydney, there's one which is the Social Outfit, there's one in Melbourne, and so they use the same model in terms of catering to migrants and refugees from their local community, bringing them in connection and in collaboration with Australian designers. Some of those designers themselves are from CALD backgrounds, and then making these beautiful sort of collections. So this sort of work is still happening. So our project lasted for 4 years before we needed to wind it up. But the work continues, and I'm really pleased to say that many of the women who were part of No Sweat Fashions, they went on to start their own businesses. So and some of them went on to then to go and do TAFE courses and do training and other things. So for us, I guess the successful outcome wasn't just that everybody then traded working as cleaners for working in a sewing factory. Like that wasn't the goal. The goal was for them to build these connections and really have a view and build their confidence. So we would have women coming to our studio, which was in, let's say, in the north side of town. They'd get on a bus and ride for 40 minutes just to get to our studio. And that was the first time they'd ever done that. They brought their children into the creche, and that was the first time that they'd ever were part of a mother's group and started. So it was all about building confidence and skills that then sort of set them on the path for settlement and economic engagement and empowerment. So, for them, so then next slide. So for the last 7 years, so after I did No Sweat Fashions, my next social enterprise was called the Millhouse Ventures. And this was a social enterprise ecosystem intermediary. So my thought was, okay, well, how can Cindy best use her talents? So I could either start another social enterprise like No Sweat, where it's me working in a social enterprise, or I could look at how could I support a community of social entrepreneurs to be more effective, to grow and scale their social enterprises. So that's what the Millhouse became. It became basically a place to support the capacity of a whole range of social entrepreneurs in our region. And it was in that capacity that I first got introduced to the Soroptimist in Canberra. So I've put lots of different pictures in here, and I hope that what is unique about my work is very obvious from these pictures. The next one, sorry, just go back, that one. Most of my clients are women. In fact, most of my clients at Millhouse are older women. So they're using business, they're really looking at social enterprise almost like their second or third careers. They may have worked 20 years in public service or, in government, or maybe they, maybe they were teachers or did something, but they've always had some sort of nagging idea that they wanted to do something for community, or they wanted to do something for a purpose. And Millhouse became the place where these I call them sort of rogue entrepreneurs would come and say, basically, yeah, we can do this. We don't need we can find support, so peer support, but also find funding for our businesses, and also I think at a fundamental basis, validation. So one of the things, and I don't know if I'd be interested to hear if you guys had that experience where you live, but here the sort of prevailing conceptualization of business is it is a man, and he's white, and he went to business school, and he starts a business, and the whole purpose of that business is to grow it to be as big as possible and to make it. And anybody who's not doing business that looks like that, well, that's not really business. And so a lot of our women, as a result of that, there was a lot of sort of fear and, temerity and lack of confidence, because they're like, is what I'm doing okay? Is this business? Is the idea that I don't really and we had to go, yeah, it is okay that the way we choose to venture and the way that we sort of center purpose and the way that we sort of try, in particular, one of the other beautiful things about my work is, I've worked with women from a lot of international backgrounds and a lot of ages. And so we were trying to do things, we were trying to also use our ventures as sort of sites of resistance as well. So look, this is something that, has been sort of probably the last 7, well, literally the last 7 years of my life has been sort of investing in the capacity of other social entrepreneurs. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. So once I finished at Millhouse, I also set up SECNA, which is the Social Enterprise Council of New South Wales and ACT. So you can see I kind of go from being one to like, how do I go? And just a few weeks ago, I was in Brisbane, where I got to attend the Social Enterprise World Forum. So this is a global movement of practitioners who are, thinking differently about how to work in our communities and how we can sustain development in a way that, that sort of helps also to reduce some of the reliance that we have on government and philanthropy, to actually have more community-driven and things that, well, we have money. Not that social enterprises, and most social enterprises also, they generate money from trade, but they still need philanthropy and government, being honest here. But to the extent that we can reduce that, and to the extent that we can build our own, sustainable business models, then gives us the independence and the agility to be able to respond to our local sort of context. So what's happening with me now is this sort of chapter is at its close, and it's because I've sort of been a bit restless and ready to kind of move on to my next thing. And these days, the work that I do, that if you want to go to the next slide, is in Indigenous entrepreneurship. So I am an Australian citizen, and I came here as a migrant from the US about 20 years ago now. And it's taken me a long time to understand the extent to which I benefit from, as a migrant to this country, I benefit from a system that has dispossessed the sovereign people of this continent, and basically, for me, I don't want to be complicit in that. I want to understand the ways that I can actually be part of, of really supporting the sovereign nations that have and always will call this country home. I feel like that's my sort of calling now. I'm also of African American and Creek Indian descent. And so, again, for me, it was sort of like almost like a personal mission that, for me, it's about it's about that sort of that sovereignty, and what role would I play as an ally in that movement for sovereignty. So for the last couple of years, I've been connected to an amazing group of women who live in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. So that's up close to where you guys are, in terms of this giant continent. And my current work, I work with an organization called Kimberley Gigas, and we are questioning the applicability of some of these development logics that have come from overseas, and now people are trying to use them in places like the Kimberley. And basically what we call it, the language we use is decolonize. You've probably heard that term. So we're talking about how do we decolonize the languages and the approaches that have failed to recognize to entrepreneurship. We're still talking about entrepreneurship, because how do we recognize and value and respect the way that Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have ventured on this continent for millennia? So a couple steps back, Aboriginal people have always ventured. They have always increased that which they value. That is the definition of entrepreneurship. But what happens when white fella came in and imposed a conceptualization of business and said, no, it has to look this way. And of course, then you're setting up this deficit. Like, why these people can't get this right? Why are they, like, it becomes about, well, what's wrong with them? Whereas our approach is saying, well, actually, no, there's nothing wrong with these people. The way that they have ventured is valid, and they need to be supported in the ways that make sense for their community, and that is consistent with their sovereign obligations to their community and to their country. So that's what we're on about. That's what I'm doing now. And look, that's basically all that I wanted to share with you today, which is a bit of a journey from where I've been from you know, somebody who came to this country and just sort of worked and benefited from the system, and then found sort of economic empowerment, and this particularly this idea of trading for purpose, which has now sort of been the beacon in the lighthouse in my life, and sort of this guiding and orienting sort of thing for me. And yeah, I love talking about it and sharing, and I'd love to you know, answer any questions that you might have, or explore a bit more. I'd love to hear from you guys now, but that's it for me.
Thank you, Cindy, for that amazing speech. We're going to start the first session of the Q&A with Cindy. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it on the chat box, but I'm going to hand this over to our Q&A master, Ibu Astrida.
Thank you. Thank you, Ori and Cindy. Thank you very much for sharing your story and kind of the different types of social entrepreneurship, the spectrum of where that fits in. Now, I'm just looking in the chat box. I don't see any questions at the moment. So I'll start with a question. Oh, yes, there is. Sorry. Elizabeth, please unmute and ask a question of Cindy. Thanks. You're still muted? Great. Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, I put it in the chat box, but I put it in for the host. So my question, Cindy, was, from your experience in general, not specific, how long would it take to get from an idea to basically something which could honestly be a sustainable entrepreneurial enterprise?
My answer to you is as quickly as possible. So it's about a process of, so we use some of the principles of what's called lean startup. So that's also really critical to the work that I do with social enterprise engineers. So the idea is we don't over-engineer it. We don't try to, you know, get all the funding, everything lined up. We want to try to get something as quickly as possible. If we think we can solve a problem for the market, we want to develop it and we want to test it as quickly as possible, because the whole idea is if we fail fast, then it allows us to then have more runway to be able to test and iterate. So that's probably not the best answer to your question, but it's wrapped up in a philosophy of lean startup sort of approaches to testing and iterating solutions for market.
Okay, thank you. Terrific. Any other questions that I can see in terms of hands up?
We have from Joanna. Let me.
And also from Isla. So Cindy, have you worked with communities with very low levels of, I think that said literacy? And so what we're trying to do, I think here, is try and relate it to the work that we're familiar with in communities where women have very low levels of literacy and are very traditional. You know, you mentioned cultural times. So I'm interested, and I think the Indigenous experience may be the closest, but how you work with that.
And look, yes, you're correct. My experience with it working with the Kimberley women is probably the closest. So they, you know, English is not, for most of the women that I work with, English is not their first language. It's an Indigenous tongue is what they speak. And then the form of English that they have, that they do understand, it is very, there's frequent misunderstanding. So they call it high English. High English isn't common. So there's usually some sort of Creole that's happening. And so really for me, the biggest challenge, I guess not challenge, the way that we sort of work through that is I work with community. So we look for leaders who are from those communities, who then sort of do a little bit of that bridging. But also for me, as you know, I'm a PhD student and a person who's, you know, highly educated, and I've had to learn to simplify things and understand that communication just takes much longer. And so, you know, if I were doing this talk for my ladies in the Kimberley, it would have been probably half the slides, a whole lot slower. Like, you know, it's just a different way of, and you have to constantly sort of code switch between the two.
Yeah. You've mentioned language a lot. Now, we've got a question from Joanna Hearn. Joanna has worked in, or does work community development in Papua New Guinea. Joanna, I can't see you, but that's fine. Floor's over to you. Oh, there you go. Gotcha. Okay, unmute.
Thank you very much, Astrida, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Astrida, for inviting me to this, and hello to you all. I'm also in Canberra. on this beautiful sacred land here. And thank you very much to the speakers and to all of you, and to Cindy, thank you. I would love to meet you.
Yes, like you're here.
Find out more and learn some more to assist and inform what Astrida mentioned in terms of things that some of the things that I've been doing, and that is that since 2018, end of 2017, I've been doing things to assist the people of the autonomous region of Bougainville, which is a semi-autonomous region of Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea and Bougainville were my first home, and following, other journeys around, and with a big part of that in Canberra, and working with the Australian government here. I am very interested in what you were saying, Cindy, at the end of your talk about the decolonisation of as I understood what you were saying, of the language and approaches to well, I will say now development.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have been very curious about. I'm trying to stay open-minded about this. At times, I have felt quite uncomfortable about the kinds of templates that it seem to be, and this is where I say I try to remain curious rather than necessarily being prejudiced and fully taking up what my discomfort. But that is these ideas of what development is, especially where it may influence or affect policy, where governments assist other nations and communities, including through money and development aid and all those sorts of things. And there seem to be at times a certain sort of templates of what that should involve or look like. And with my friends in Bougainville, for example, I have a deep passion and a commitment for sovereign cultures, with a strong background in anthropology, informed by, as well as other things. But what does a good life and survival and health and happiness and well-being mean to you, my friends in Bougainville, and my sisters? I've worked with, big part of that is working with women there, rather than necessarily things that just make money in the same sense that other Western nations might do. So
you are asking.
Thank you for your comments, Joanna. Response, Cindy?
Oh, look, I just wanted to thank Joanna. Thank you. You are asking the right questions, and I think the fact that you are an ally in the sense that you've also you've grown up there, you understand that there is a different conceptualization exactly of those things, of wealth, of health, of happiness, and there is going to be that tension in usually the big money that comes in that does want to impose a conceptualization about that. And I think the only way you can start is by bringing attention to it. So my work, it's so fundamental because it really is about the stuff that I'm doing in the Kimberley. It's saying, look, these women understand wealth differently. They understand entrepreneuring as a process differently. And it has implications then for this whole industry of people who want to invest and grow and develop and do. I was joking with my husband the first time I went to Kununurra. I was like, economic development intermediaries and organizations and clubs are like churches up here. There's one on every corner. It's saturated, and yet this is abject people, the most the Aboriginal people are living in abject poverty. You're like, where is all this money coming from? So obviously there's something fundamentally broken. And I think the more of us, including all of you women on this call, like you are uniquely positioned because you are allies, you move in and out of spaces. So you're in community, but you're also in government and in philanthropy and in places of influence. And so I think to the extent that we can, educate ourselves and, ask the difficult questions is really, really important.
Okay, I think if we've got any other questions, Sir Optimus
I put my email in the chat, and I'd love
yes,
to. Like, I'm really
exactly.
happy to. I wish I could stay longer.
That's fine. I think just to finish on one, it's interesting. When is a social entrepreneur? When does an individual become a social entrepreneur? Is it a group thing or an individual thing? And that's because our experience in our work in Lombok, and I think our next speaker as well, I think Ibu Irani is more of the social entrepreneur like yourself, sorry, that sort of business. But what we're talking with women who are just, they wouldn't even conceptualize themselves as entrepreneurs. It's a very different thing. Yeah. I'm just interested how that transition occurs, or if it ever does, and does it matter? And then we'll finish.
Look, I have seen it from the beginning. So I've seen it at Millhouse. People come to me and they're like, I'm doing this business, but I'm also supporting this community or doing this thing for purpose. And I go, hey, that's called social entrepreneurship. And they go, really? I didn't know that. Like it's an everyday thing. What's the benefit of naming it? The benefit of naming it is then we can track it, we can measure it, we can build a community around it, we can rally around something once we understand what it is. So for me, it is that fundamental, whether they know it or not, they are all increasing that which they value. That is the definition of entrepreneurship. So this, and for most of our women, and particularly in community, they are increasing more than just money. It's connection, it's other things. So that by definition is social entrepreneurship. So
no, that's great. That's good. I think that's a lovely rounding off for that. So thank you very much. We'll say goodbye to Cindy, and her email is in the chat. And I think Joanna, Cindy, get together and we might, do other things as well. So thank you very much.
Love to.
Cindy.
Thank you again so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for everyone who have asked the questions. With this, I want to thank Cindy as well. I think she's gone now, but or she's still here. Okay, but it's been a great talk with Cindy. And if you still have any questions for Cindy, just put them in the chat box and we can forward it to her later. Okay, now let's move on to the second part of the agenda. I'm going to read out our second speaker's bio. Ibu Ina Juniarti from Berani Merintis Usaha. So Ibu Ina holds an electrical engineering degree and took a Master of Development Study program at the Bandung Institute of Technology. At PT Dirgantara, she gained aircraft industry experience, and she is also a senior system dynamics modeling expert. Okay. Following her passion to make a contribution to the community, Ina has been providing free entrepreneurship training, assisting micro, small, and medium enterprises. She is also a tutor, a creator, an innovator, a facilitator, investor, and marketer. In her work, Ina collaborates with local governments, social institutions, and various community groups. Serious participants are given funding and marketing assistance, but Ina also administers the Berani Merintis Usaha bersama IJ, or Dare to Create Business with IJ. In addition, she has been actively socializing productive zakat to accelerate poverty alleviation. Let's welcome Ibu Ina. And
okay.
Are you ready for your slide?
No, I think I will make a write-up of a summary of what I want to talk. So hello everybody. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all things. So first of all, I want to really say thank you very much for this opportunity to share what I'm doing on this occasion. So my topic that I want to discuss is how I can empower the micro, small, medium enterprise using WhatsApp. So I starting empowering since 1980, but using the WhatsApp is starting 2017. So before the pandemic. So the breakthrough that I make is I'm using WhatsApp so I can give assistance at a low cost and with no limitation, location and time. So I can give consultation wherever I go and almost 24 hours because I wake in the morning because my participants is not only in Indonesia, but also from abroad. So that's that's a breakthrough that I mean. So I using WhatsApp not just for sharing that, but I can use to empower. So starting because like Ori already said that my background is a system modeling. So I know that most people think that to be successful in the business is need capital, market, scale, and network. But the driver for that, if you have that, you give that all, it won't be succeed. Why? Because the main driver is their motivation and they have a target to achieve. That's the main key success for. If they don't have any motivation, they don't have any target for their life, so it's impossible that you can assist them to be success in business. Like what Cindy already said, that's the important things is that. So what the key success of empowerment is the motivation and achievement target, not just the knowledge, skill, or capital support. Even in my government or the government program always give a training, give a capital, give all support and promotion, but they not really touch the main key success is the motivation and the achievement target. And when you ask somebody to do starting a business, you have to realize that that is a critical phase. That's during the startup, like what Cindy already says. So start is no profit, even that they need a lot of effort on the startup phase. That's the critical phase. So what you have to assist is on that phase. So you have to push. They have as soon as a superior product on that session, and also after their decline. So if they already come, the business already declining, so you have to help them to have a new innovation superior product. So how I start them, because I'm using the WhatsApp, and like that the participant is starting the education from the low education until very high education, and also from 4 years, the age is from 4 years until very old. So before I ask them if they have to get an idea from friends, from a survey, from that, or using this YouTube. I think the Extra Cash Indonesia is very good. You can start looking that. It's 1,000 of ideas there. So after they get the idea, so I want to do this. So I'm starting helping them. So my solution is develop a superior product, can be done easily. Could be fast. I can do it one day, and I can prove you after this with my slide, with my video, and with using cheap material, using all the tools that they have. Don't have to buy first, and with not a spatial scale, but you can build any luxurious product. So with that, the motivations come, and they proud of themselves, and they starting feel that, okay, I can do that. So that confidence is come. So in the short-term period that I say in one day, so like abracadabra, so you will see So I hope with my presentation will provide inspiration, idea, and motivation to help others. And you can do it also soon after my presentation. Okay, that's what I want to share with you in the next 10 minutes. Okay, Ori, you can start my slide. Ori.
I have started the slide, Ibu.
Yeah, okay. From
You
the
want to
beginning,
say- Oh, yeah.
from,
Okay, wait.
yes. Okay, fine. That's what I already told you. Okay, next. So my solution, again, the actors must have this motivation to achieve target, to produce excellent quality, cost and delivery and service, so the QCD and competitive product. So even the beginners from the beginning, they have to, in their mind, I have to make a very excellent product, not just, yeah, because I starting. So no, from the beginning must be have a quality product. That's the key. And what I'm doing, I assist them to do that, and also continuous improvement, encourage them to also have a positive and persistence to do that. So next. Yeah, so motivation is must come from the actors that you want to assist them. And what I'm doing is giving an overtime to help them on the problem that they face. If they have a problem in marketing, just do that. If they have a problem on produce, just do that. Not like what the government make an exhibition. They don't have any product yet. How come you give us as free exhibition, free promotion? So what they will come there, even that they don't have any brochure? That's really silly to go from Papua to Ina Craft in Jakarta. They sleep on the stand because and nobody come to buy. Okay, and that's the idea that I show you, the SK is Indonesia. There's a very variety of idea how to get money soon. Okay, next. That's my simple, that's what I show you. Using this, so I will focus here. I'm doing many sectors as also crafting, but here I want to focus on culinary because that's most of people like, and the market is very broad. With this not need any sophisticated tools and skills. You can do this. You can be like fine dining already from the beginning. You see that? Just a cucumber and you cut with that. You can do that. Even that's why what I told you from 4 years is the age already start doing this. Okay, next. So the beginner can easily become professional. That's what I do. So with this also my creative like Surabi using this good looking, you can directly doing that. You see that's one grape we can cut 2 grape cut between 8. So this will be like a good looking product. Next. So simple, but and also if you say I don't have any tools, so you don't have an oven, you have wok, you can use as an oven. You can start produce that. Yeah, if you starting doing that, you don't have to need to make a huge amount of product. Just using your wok, just starting doing this. Or this is a candy craft. You can make a kakiage. You don't have to have this. Next. This lovely. You can sell a very expensive in the restaurant. That's a chicken, smoked chicken. The tools, if you buy, is more than $1,000, I think. But you can use your own wok or your own pan at home. And how do you make a smoke? Just using tea and rice and later sugar. So you can make and sell a smoked chicken. So that's the result, the smoked chicken. Also, that's cremas. You can use the bottle, aqua bottle, and you can make a hole on it, so you don't have to use your fingers. So it's very, very simple tools. If you still don't have it, you can use rice cooker. Everybody have a rice cooker now. You can make a rice cooker as an oven. Okay, next. You want to make a donut. In a traditional donut, using your fingers and put in the shape is not good. It's not good looking. You can use glass and using the cap of the bottle. You can make a great donut. So why you have to buy expensive things? So you can do it without. So no doubt that you say, I don't have any patience. No, you have to start it if you want. That's what. So if you start selling things, one recipe became probably 25 pieces. It's impossible. You can sell it sold out 25 pieces. But if you divide into 5 kind of things, so you can steam, you can bapao with the sweet inside, probably chocolate or peanuts, butter, and you make with abon using a salty one. And you see this, it's just with the bottle down. It's a lovely things. With donut, is already donut. You can just pull it, became donut satay. It's very lovely. So with one became 1, 2, 3, 4 product or 5 product. It's from one recipe became each 5. So selling 5 pieces each is easier than selling 25, isn't it? So easily to sold out. So they don't have to be, I don't have, no, you got it. Next. That's also the same thing. With the same recipe, same taste, you put inside banana with different shape. You put here coconut, you put here strawberry and things. It's already different shape, different things. You sell 5 of this. This is one recipe, become 50. So there's many kind of it. So if you buy it, oh, okay, I tried this 2, this 2, this 2, this 2, already 10. But if you just make one kind, buy 2, you just 2. Okay, you don't have need many customers to buy, so easily to sold out. That's what I mean. That's the things that the abracadabra that I make. You can have a good product, superior product in one day, and you can start doing business. Okay, next. Same as for cassava, that I also go to the rural side that's far away from the city. So the cassava is always there. So you make this kind of with the good looking, you can go direct to supply the hotel and all the catering things with the good looking of traditional cassava cookies. Next. And also, if you want to improve the value of the kind that they already have, so you just pack it this way. This is for my mother's birthday at that time at 76. So you can sell it higher for birthday cake, for things like this tumpeng, for this shape. This is all the cookies here. Okay, next. And also I teach them the circular economy. Don't throw it away, everything that you have. You see this? If you need some things from the kitchen, just put it in a glass. So if you need to cook something, you just cut it. This is a chili. This is all the things you can do that you need for cooking. Next. So my guide always, everyone can do it again easily. Cheap material, result has to be luxurious. That's my standard. No, nothing that is just regular product, even from the beginner. For culinary, must be fresh, healthy, and no natural ingredients. So there is no chemical sulfative or some like borax, formalin, no, and no MSG. That's the competitive and advantage of, and also comparative advantage of the product that that's the way. And the participant must be creative, interactive, and active. Next, innovative and active. Next. So that's the how do I challenge them every day in the WhatsApp. I ask them, they always have a rice at home. So take your rice, make today, this week is the challenge is make a nasi panggang, and I give a present for them if they win that. Yeah, that's the way. So healthy foods like this is very good looking. So even that the chendol, if you in the street, you feel it's not healthy. If in the bottle it's nice looking like this, you will buy it because it's guaranteed that it's good. That's also regular product, but with good looking like this, they will improve the selling point. Next. And the other things, so how to start, they have a confidence, have a promotion, pictures for promotion. So I also make a Duafa implementation package. So I take a donor, just 100 rupiah, is mean less than $8, yeah, to ask them to make 10 packs of product. Why is 10? Because 10 they don't need any servant, somebody to help, and they can make it in 1 hour. So that's the, but still in the break-even point price. With that, so they can have all, you see, this is a regular paper with using origami like a box. So if you, it can be this way, if you open, become a box. So it's very cheap and very environmental safe. So with that, they also already have product. With this picture, you can sell it. I have this product, and they can sell it with and they learn how to make with a small amount of money to make this product. So they learn a lot about that. Next. So with 10,000, that's also to honorable people, things like that. That's I push them to create that just with 20 rupees. 20,000 rupees, I can donate them for, yeah, with 100, I can donate 5. And next, that's also the benefit of this package as for the participant, they get a real order experience, again, sorry, experience to get a competitive product in the short term. They have the photos for their promotion, the confidence, because now they already have the product and they already done it, and motivation start doing business. For the donor, the multiple benefit, because they know that now I supporting somebody to be entrepreneur, and also charity, because the result is given to the poor, and they have to make a report, a good picture to the donor, so they learn how to promote their product and their capability. That's the benefit. Next. So that's the example. So it's not regular chumbang. So it's very creative, and everybody, and also the things, if you have a couple, that's just tumpang for 2. You cannot get it, everyone. So with the love symbol, or with this king for your lover's birthday, just for 2 person, that's better than birthday cake. Okay, so with that, so as make the market broader. Next. And if you say, if the flour is already expired, don't use it. It's impossible. They are poor. They always use it, but it's dangerous. So what I doing is ask them not for food, but for replica of the food. This is the replication. And you know that you can sell more than 5,000 rupiah for each of this. If in Japan, it's already used to use the replica for promotion. So this is for, next. This is come from the replica from expired flour. So you don't have to say that don't use the expired, but you have a solution for them. This also, yeah, next, the traditional food that they make. So all is good looking. Next. Next, yes. Okay, so, and are helping them. You see this, just a regular boiled egg, but you use this. Why? You use what this down leaf to put this. So like batik, you put in the pindang pot. So after you take it off the leaf, became this shape. I call it the batik egg. So it's, you can get the, even that 4,000 became 10,000 rupees for this. So you improve the value. Next. Next. Yeah. You see? And I also help them in my group to make a viral of all the product. You see, this is traditional. So when they produce this for the first time, and you already can go to the hotel or promote this, ask them to buy it, and everybody likes it because it's different, it's good looking, it's luxurious. So next, yeah. And so every quarter, because there's a I make a meeting, this sharing, and I tested all the food that they make, because from WhatsApp, I can taste it, and from that I can make a correction of that. And I also ask them to go to the restaurant, high level restaurant, so they can see that their product can be 10 times or more, 50 times expensive what they sell. So it's motivate them. Next. And I push them to enter the contest. So yesterday, this one, Buwina is winning the contest with this tumpeng, with this egg. Also, that the cookies like this. So they're proud of it, and and the community is accepted. It's not only in the BMO, but yes, also they sometimes is Indonesia also get the press, win the contest from all level, national level. Next. Next. Yeah, that's more probably you can share the video that I think, Ori.
Yes, please.
At the end of
Well,
yeah, first that the things that I probably didn't see. So this the
challenge.
Yeah. One that I, so in the morning I guess that's your yeah. So I just and the next, so that's the, so in the morning I ask them the challenge to do that, and the afternoon they send it through email, through WAG, WhatsApp, what's the result. And that's during the Indonesia 75 years, I think, next out of 77. Sorry.
This is the second video, Ibu.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's what I'm trying to present. If there's any questions, so I agree that I think you all can do that now, really, and it's a lot of benefit that you will feel, especially in, yeah, you if they smile, it's your smile too. If they are happy, you are happy. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Ibu Ina. You're so passionate about what you do. I don't know whether to be to start cooking or to start eating because I'm hungry to see all the food. We're gonna start the Q&A session after the presentation from Soroptimis International of Jakarta. I want to invite Ibu Ayla to make an introduction about the video that we're going to show. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. This presentation was actually one that we conducted for the United Nations in March this year as part of their Commission on the Status of Women program. So SI Jakarta project is ongoing in a Lombok village, which is in eastern Indonesia. It actually started as a water project, where we constructed 2 wells to provide an ongoing water supply. And this freed the women up from hours and hours of collecting water from an old, almost dry well. In phase 2 of this project, we began to focus on community development through capacity building and social entrepreneurship activities, working mainly with women. And Ibu Ina mentioned challenges in such programs, mainly motivating people and so on, and quality. And we certainly experienced some of those challenges. And in this village, the people were very poor and they were illiterate, and they felt that poverty was their fate. So why should I learn anything? I'm going to be poor anyway. But we have managed to change their lives by introducing vocational programs, especially their reviving their weaving tradition and introducing sewing, and we hope also cooking, and maybe we will be competitors with Ibu Ina. Okay, Ori, would you like to start the video? Greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. The project I'll be describing to you today is the Earthquake Recovery Project through water, shelter, and capacity building, and this project is located in Lombok, Indonesia. So the project commenced in March 2019 and was funded by the SI President's Appeal of 2017 and 2019. And under phase 1, we constructed a new bore, which is now providing water for the entire village. And we also constructed 24 toilets and bathrooms, and the village had never enjoyed wash facilities before. In phase 2, we have focused on capacity building, and this phase has been funded by SI and SISWP President's Special Appeals. Apart from capacity building programs, we've also focused on community awareness programs, such as health, hygiene and sanitation, waste management, climate change mitigation, and disaster preparedness. So why did we choose Rebuk Satu village in Lombok? Through our survey, we found that there was great water scarcity after the quake. As you can see, this well is quite empty, and the women would spend hours waiting to obtain a small amount of water each day for their needs. There has always been a high level of poverty and illiteracy in this village, and of the 124 villages, 60% are women and girls. Our partner organisation in this project has been the non-profit Titian Foundation, and we have also had collaboration and support from local and provincial governments. Our major project strategies, our major focus has been on water and wash facilities provision. We've also identified local project champions so that the villagers better understood the aims of the project. We obtained villagers' written consent. For those who could read and write, they signed the agreements themselves, and for those who couldn't, they were assisted by the village chief. The emphasis in this project has always been on community-driven development and participation at all levels and by both males and females. We've set up village work committees with women in key roles and conducted capacity building programs for women. And these have included weaving. We've actually revived the weaving tradition in this village. We've conducted financial literacy and entrepreneurship programs, sowing, growing vegetables, and basic literacy skills, since 80% of the women in this village are illiterate. The positive outcomes. Water and wash facilities are now available to the whole village community. Women are learning income generating skills. And in the midterm project review, 100% satisfaction was recorded. Youths are more involved in community matters these days. We've introduced organic farming principles, and through our Titian partner, we've actually set up a new community learning centre. The woven cloths now produced by the weavers in our village are sold locally and overseas and have been purchased by our SI sisters in Japan, in Europe, and also in the US. This project is aligned to the first 6 SDGs, and mainly through the provision of water and sanitation. This has led to better health and well-being, zero hunger, less poverty, more gender equality, and more education for the villagers. Impact and evaluation. There is now sustainable systems in place in this village. Water management is still a major focus, and we've been breaking the bias with women now in leadership roles. The revival of the weaving tradition has had positive economic and socio-cultural impacts in this region. The community programs are changing habits, the younger generation is more involved, and disaster preparedness and climate change are better understood. What lessons have we learned in implementing this project? Well, community-driven development and participation are vital for success. Local champions and trainers also lead to greater success because they can communicate better at the villages level. They speak their own dialect and they know the traditions well. Inclusion and capacity building have led to women's empowerment and gender equity, and changing mindsets has been taking place, but that's an ongoing process and we don't expect to change people's mindsets overnight. Teaching by example and providing incentives has led to positive results. And one example of this is we actually conducted a competition in the village not so long ago. And those who received prizes were the households who had the cleanest front yards and who had planted trees and shrubs. The gender focus supported by this project include equal opportunities and gender equity, women as defenders of water and promoters of disaster preparedness and climate change understanding, empowerment, leadership through capacity building, and providing women's basic literacy programs. And we've also been able to raise awareness through this project on the negative impacts of child brides and child exploitation. Thank you. So if you've got any questions on the project, please share them in the chat box and we'll certainly endeavour to respond.
And thank you. Thank you to both speakers, Ina and Isla. Now, I'll just start with any questions. I've looked in the chat box. May I say, we'll start with Ina, fantastic presentation about what can be achieved with motivation and quality. And I think, as Isla said, you know, getting people to recognise or aspire to quality and a different way of looking at what you can achieve is actually really hard. That's the issue. So my question to you, Ina, is what sort of women, how did you connect? The photos that I've seen seem to be, and I gather your project is in Jakarta, is that right? I can't hear you, just unmute. So how did you engage and get this idea of quality apart from your extremely passionate and your leadership obviously has a lot to do with it, but how did you get the individuals to continually strive for that? Thank you.
Yeah, I start from 1980. At that time, not using WhatsApp, so I can make face-to-face, and I make a trainer every weekend. They come to my house, and it's open for everybody, and for all levels. And you know, that's all of my goods is gone, things like that, and so very dirty because you know that's they don't have the culture. It's it's not clean things. They not have that. So that's why I close that. I come to the place where they live. So if you have 30 people, I will teach you how to build, and I give an order, I give teach how to do that, I give tools and things like that. That's after that. But when I getting old and I also already retired, so starting 2017, I using the WhatsApp. So I cover all over Indonesia, and from I have a participant from Papua, I have participant from, so all place. So yesterday I get the show the video. They opened the bakery in Sumatra Barat. It's not Sumatra, Batu Sangkar. It's not in the Batu Sangkar, in the village. So they use the tools that very traditional, using wood, and so it's not sophisticated things that the tools that's expensive, and it's working. And no, it's already just 1 month. They can sell it to Jakarta because the quality of product. And how I teach that? If it's good, it's my mouth is not nice. I say it's not good. It's you can sell it if that's the way. It's not my standard, and they cry sometimes. Yeah, but
You're
it's
tough. You're tough.
And they say that, yeah, but I'm as a beginner. No, you have to begin with the good things. If you start with the bad things, will be always bad. I teach you. I help you. I already have experience. That's why I transfer to you. You don't have to start with the bad things. You always go, always, that's the way. So because I have experience for that, so I know how to do that. And like yesterday, last month, when I go to Düsseldorf, I take a picture of that. So you have to make this in Düsseldorf. That's what I eat in the high level class, in the high level hotel. I eat it. If I have a seminar, you have to make this. You know, this is 1,000 rupees. You just sell 5,000. No, you have to do this way. It's same. Just make this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yep. Yeah, no, that's great. Now, there's a really good question that's come in the chat box. Couple of things. I'll get back to the tours a bit later, Isla, Ori, you know, but from Joanna, for both of you, for Ina and Isla, please could you comment on the impact of these projects on the traditional cultures of the communities and the women that you're involved with? And by this, she means practices, beliefs and activities that are important to sustain the village, the community's well-being. So, you know, so there are two different examples. Ina has people from all over that I've gathered, and then Isla from, I think we might start with Isla on this one, from the local, and then I'll get Ina to talk about. So the impact on the traditional cultures of the project.
Well, one of the issues that I think we can focus on is, I mentioned in the last slide, we became aware of the impact of child marriages in the region of Lombok. And by offering vocational training and skills development, we haven't achieved it yet, we are slowly making the village realise that with better education and with skills, hopefully young girls and boys will not have to be married off early. And when I say early, 12 years, 14 years and so on, yeah? And we have a superb model, a woman who has had the most education in the village, only up to third year high school, but she has been able to prevent her daughter from being kidnapped and forced into marriage, yeah? By earning money, she makes the best cloths in the village. And by the way, we reject those cloths which are not of good quality, and that is our way, as Ibu Ina has mentioned, our way of making them more motivated and prouder of what they do, because if you make products which are slapdash and, you know, threads are, you know, not in the right place and so on, it's not a good, it's not regarded as good, and it's hard to sell. But getting back to the traditions, education is one of the key areas that we focus on, and we have set up the youth group too, actually, in some ways, they are the link with the parents, yeah? They can say, we want to finish school, yeah? We don't believe in some of these traditions, and what we have discussed within our club is how interesting it is that the boys don't want to get married early either. We conducted a survey, and it's because of the traditions that they just follow, yeah? But I also said in my slide that changing mindsets and attitudes takes time. It's ongoing, but we've made great progress just by, you know, changing attitudes that because we were born poor, we're always going to be poor. We've never had much water, so why should we be clean, yeah? If you chop down trees in the local hills, you can sell it to the pizza cafes downtown, yeah? And that's better maybe for us than you know, worrying about climate change and deforestation, things like that. So this project covers a lot of those areas, and we're pleased to say we have made impact, and even on some of the men too, which is always a challenge.
Good, thank you, Isla. And it's a partnership. It's not something that is imposed. This is the, we've learned from, you know, from Cindy, but this is the new kind of, no, it's not new. It makes a lot of sense, but working with community in community development. Now, Ina, in terms of your breadth of experience, how many of your maybe participants, the women that you've helped, come from more traditional backgrounds, and how have they been taking up, you know, your entrepreneurial guidance? Have you had, yes,
from my statistic, it's 5 to 10% of that you succeed. But like additional to Isla said that about the culture change, like now before it's just the wife doing the business and the husband just see, and but now because this became their income, so the husband helping them to do that job. So it's just change the culture. And others now, I have a widow with 10 daughter, 10 children. That's still small, and now it's 6 already graduate and the ITB2 UP, so in a very high school. So they understand that, so change their life, the way of life. So I think that's also, and also like Cindy also say, I say that they sometimes they not feel confidence because they're poor. So how I motivate them, like every quarterly I take them to the good restaurant. So I buy a dress for them. So they feel that. That's what I eat is same as I made.
Yeah, no,
why
that's
it's
great.
so expensive? Why it's 10 times? That's why I say you can do that.
Yes, you give them the opportunity. To see things.
First time I teach when the dim sum is not popular, I teach them to make dim sum. They say, what is the dim sum? They never taste it. So that's why from that I learned that every quarterly I bring them so to this dim sum cafe. So they know exactly the dim sum. They know exactly the price is very high. They know the taste is just that. They can do that better what they make. So that's the way I'm doing.
Thank you. Fantastic, Ina.
Yeah,
so thank you.
How many?
Yes.
One success new entrepreneur each week.
That's fantastic. So with that, I think we will wrap up the question and answer session. Over to you, Ori, to wrap up the session. And that was inspirational. We've gone from the concept to the practical to the wonderful things that, you know, call out for SRJ in Jakarta. It's been wonderful. Thank you. So over to you, Ori. Thanks.
Thank you, our Q&A master. It's like a duo. So I feel honored to share the stage with Ibu Astrida. And what a great session. I would like to thank both of our speakers, both Ibu Cindy and Ibu Ina, for their amazing presentation, also for sharing their insights on the issues of social entrepreneurship. But I also want to thank Ibu Ina, because Ibu Cindy is not here, for their contributions to women empowerment. Ibu Ina is so passionate, and I'm sure thousands and thousands of women will will be an expert in making fine dining presentation. And I wish you best of luck in your future with Berani Merintis Usaha.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also want to share you the screen. Wait, share. Just in case you wanna learn more about our project or our organization. We in Soroptimist International of Jakarta held a meeting every month, and we talk about projects and issues that we can do. So if you're interested to learn more about us, or even to join our organization, or even sit in one of our meetings, we would happily embrace you with open arms. And after this event, we'll also gonna be sharing you our information via email. And also we are going to, oh, don't forget, if you're interested to share more about this discussion, we are going to post the whole recording of the session in our YouTube channel. And last but not least, before Ibu Ina step away and we end this meeting, I, on behalf of Soroptimist International of Jakarta, would like to present you with this orchid. Thank you so much for agreeing to become our speakers and to make this discussion far more lively. Thank you, Ibu Ina. And what else should I? Okay. Before I end this seminar, I would like to thank all of the Soroptimist International sisters who joined us today. Also for the Soroptimist International of Jakarta, who has worked tirelessly to make this webinar happen. And I also want to thank all the participants who have registered and joined our discussions. We hope you are inspired, and we hope to hear more about your success stories on.
Can we make photos?
Yes, of course, Ibu.
Yeah. So
Before
photo
we
session,
do
I
that,
think, for documentation.
Yeah.
For all,
Yes, Ibu Ayla.
Before we close, I'd like to also publicly thank Ori, our president, who has done a marvelous job, and her mum passed away this week. And so this is dedication and commitment, yeah? So thank you so much, Ori, for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu. Thank you so much, everyone.